Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase, the podcast that helps you succeed in your business, life, and career. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, with the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing amazing. You know, it has just been a week, a couple of weeks, actually, that is just beyond words. You know, you had the holidays, you had Passover and Easter, and I know most of my time was spent following the Artemis II. This was absolutely beyond words. And I said to folks while we were watching the launch, you know, we are watching the start of a mission that's taking mankind further out into space than ever before. And personally, I was watching it on an iPad. So the technology was just very obvious. And while I'm watching this, live footage of the launch, a live audio feed from Mission Control, it just struck me as how much access we have to these amazing things. And while we're watching, there's a chat box at the side, and people from all over the world are watching along with us. From there to, the daily updates from the mission all the way to the splashdown, it's really symbolic to say there is nothing out of reach. There's nothing that we can't do.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I know we're going to be talking about dealing with the unexpected and so on and so forth, and there's so many things that have to go right with that. But I just watched like the highlights because I like watching the Masters golf tournament, and I went on, I looked at the landing and everything else on tape on delay. But when I was done with that, and it was probably about 11, 12 o'clock at night, all of a sudden I got nostalgic because I was 15 years old on July 20th, 1969. And that night, I was glued to my television, and I just went to YouTube, and I got to rewatch Walter Cronkite talking about landing on the moon, them touching down, and then the next segment was Neil Armstrong's first steps on the moon. And I remember that like it was yesterday. And here it was, 57 years ago? It's just, it's amazing. And, obviously there was a lot of stuff that happened afterwards, and you're 15 years younger than I am, and there's been tragedy and there's been unbelievable things, but it's so amazing that this time they actually went farther than man's ever been before, and coming back, and it is rocket science. It's great stuff.
Yes.
It's wonderful. And I probably won't live long enough to see it, but maybe putting something up there to help out with these and that, whatever, it would not surprise me a bit if that's what's going on. So,
I think you'll live to see it, because they're talking about returning men to the moon and starting to build a permanent base up there within the next 5 years.
Yep. Well, that would be great.
Yeah.
I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to it until it came as far as the launch and all that, but it was just so exciting to see all that again. It was really exciting seeing the coverage of all the people, number one, watching the launch when they went off, and then all the reactions when they came back. It was wonderful. I mean, nowadays they have pictures of them getting up into the helicopter, flying to the ship and so on, and getting off. I mean, everything is so much covered. It's just amazing. So it's
Yeah, it
Well,
really is. And I mean, the fact that NASA themselves not only did the launch, but there's now, NASA TV. So they were able to broadcast literally 24/7
Yep.
every detail of this mission. And yes, our topic today is dealing with unexpected things and uncertainty. And the reason I'm tying all of this in is because when you think about it, I mean, 1969, we walked on the moon. Now, 90% of us have a phone that has more computing power than all of the computers they used in 1969 to do the original moon launch. We're seeing amazing technology go where the tech in the capsule, in the broadcast, how we saw the broadcast. I mean, think about it. In 1969, nobody ever imagined the internet, streaming services, on-demand broadcasts. Technology changes so quickly that the fact of the matter is, we are now dealing with uncertain conditions and unexpected things on a daily basis.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much going on, and so that's what it's all about. But as far as dealing with the unexpected, obviously there's with all this stuff going on and with all the media around to tell us everything that's going on, uh, dealing with the unexpected, really, if you go back to some core principles, that's really always been the same since mankind started walking the
Yes, it
earth. And it gets
has.
back to a lot of different things that we're talking about. You know, it starts with accepting and acknowledging that that's going to happen, trying the best you can to focus your energy on what you can change rather than worrying about what you can't, which is controllable. Taking your action steps, breaking things down into smaller parts, like we talk about, seeking support, practicing self-care for yourself so you're mentally able to go through this stuff, and then reframe the situation. I always talk about, we talk about all the time, and every obstacle lies in opportunity. So obviously there's mental and emotional approaches that you can have, responding and not reacting, mindfulness, those kind of things. So I mean, they all play a part in it. And the bottom line is, life is unexpected. Life would be boring if it wasn't.
It would. Now, I mean, you rattled off a lot of elements pretty quickly, but one of the things that's so important in dealing with black swan events, and for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with the term black swan or don't know how that started, back in, I think it was the 18th century, it was widely believed that all swans were white. A black swan was impossible. Nobody believed it existed until there was an expedition to Australia where they actually found one. And they didn't know. They had to, see, is it really a swan? What is it? But it was completely unexpected because people actually believed to that point that having a swan of any other color was impossible. So now we refer to things that are completely unexpected as black swan events. And when you're dealing with it, all of the things that, Chip just brought up, they're all necessary. But when the black swan event hits, it's too late to start working on that stuff. You need to start practicing before the black swan event ever happens. It's like having a plan for a crisis. I'm sure everybody has heard how important it is to have a plan to escape your house in case of a fire. Well, you don't wait for a fire to put this plan together. You're supposed to have it in place, have your smoke alarms, have your carbon monoxide alarms, know where the exits are, how the best way to go out is. This way, when the fire happens, you're not thinking about all of that. The warnings go off from the smoke alarms. You know how to get out of the house. You have to practice these skills in order to deal with black swan events effectively. And the first one, as Chip said, is acknowledging that it is absolutely impossible to anticipate everything. You know, this is actually a law in physics, best known as the Heisenberg principle, is that you can know the position of a particle or the direction of a particle, but you can't know both. We're not capable of knowing everything. So the first step is understanding that, yes, things are going to happen that are outside of your plan, that are outside of your experience. And once you understand that, it actually becomes easier to deal with them because you've already acknowledged that what you might think is impossible, or at the very least improbable, can still happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And understand too that we are human. So when they happen, you are going to feel emotional distress. You might feel shock. You might feel anger, and so on and so forth. And this is just another time to apply these techniques that we've talked about in other episodes too. It's just so important to do that. Basically controlling the controllable, just focusing the energy on what you can change rather than worrying about the uncontrollable aspects of the situation. You talked about preparing them and having a plan in the first place, and that's the way to take control before that even happens. And obviously, part of that is taking your actionable steps to what you're going to do, which you just talked about also. But when things like that happen, it's so important, as in other times when crises or different things, even wonderful things occur, is to just reach out to your friends and your family, seek support if you need seeking support, or if you want to share something with somebody, share it with somebody. But it's so important to do that. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do, but it all starts working on that person in the mirror, which is you, and just understanding, yes, these things are going to happen. Hopefully nothing major, but whatever happens,
right,
you're going to get through it. So
yes,
you have
yes,
two
you
ways to
will.
do it. You can either get through it with a positive mindset, or you can just sit there and be miserable the whole time. So
Right.
choose positivity.
And you did just mention something that is so important. The first thing that you really have to do is not to blindly react. We've talked about this in the past. You want to respond rather than reacting. So how do you respond? In a case like this, it's more than just taking a breath. You need to take the time to take a look at the situation and go, okay, these are the aspects that I can affect. You might not have control over them, but you can have influence and you can have an effect on them. And then there's going to be other elements that you have absolutely no control over. So you need to focus on those parts of it that you can control. What can you actually do to improve or at least mitigate the circumstances? So your first step should not be to blindly react, as so many of us do, but to take a careful look at the situation and go, okay, this part of it, I have no say over this. Whatever's going to happen there is going to happen. But this part I can control. So what can I do to improve that? And once you've figured out what parts of it are within your purview and which parts of it aren't, then you can start to focus on creating actions to actually take care of what's in your control.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, practicing mindfulness is a big part of it, practicing your breathing, meditation, and so on and so forth that we've talked about in the past, so that you're not going to overreact to this in the first place is so important. And if you have a practice of that going on, it's going to help out a whole lot just in keeping you grounded. Basically we talk a lot about event plus response equals outcome, and between the response and the event is your reaction, which is your feelings and emotions and what you're feeling about it and so on and so forth. So it is so, so important to respond thoughtfully. Think about it first rather than panic and so on and so forth, and make sure that your response, which is what you do about it, is something that is positive or helping you to handle this in a more sane manner for yourself and everybody
Yes.
else around you. So obviously, because if you're going crazy about it, especially like if you're a parent or so on and so forth, and the kids are watching, it's going to be a chain reaction. However, if you're calm, what you're doing is you're setting an example for your kids about handling these things as they grow up and moving ahead. And it's just so easy for us to lose it on that stuff. And, exhibit A is in the mirror. I've done that many times myself. It's, it happens, but we
I'm
get
sure.
awareness. The first word we mentioned was awareness that I did that.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody has done that at one point or another. It's part of human nature. But knowing that you need to be able to focus and you need to be able to control your response. If you don't feel you're capable of controlling your response, that's when you reach out for support. And it can be a friend, it can be a family member, it can be a resource number from your community, it can be a therapist, whatever it is, that wherever that access is that you need support for, reach out and get that support. Because if you're caught in a panic mode, it's very difficult to get out of panic by yourself. It's sort of self-perpetuating. The more you panic, the more you think about what's wrong, which causes more panic, which causes you to focus more on what's wrong, and it's just a cycle. So you need to be able to break out of that cycle. And yes, sometimes you can do it on your own, but very often you're going to need help. So don't hesitate to talk to somebody. And for a lot of folks, it's almost embarrassing to say, I need help, but it shouldn't be. Again, something we've talked about on numerous podcasts is Bob Berg's The Go-Giver books. And one of the laws of the Go-Giver is you have to be open to receiving. And you're not going to receive if you don't ask. So you have to get comfortable with asking for help when you need it. Now, yes, there's going to be unexpected situations that, even though they're unexpected, they're completely within your wheelhouse. They're things you can handle. They're things that, you feel confident that you can take care of it. And that's great when that happens. But not every unexpected situation is going to fall into that. And when it doesn't, you reach out for support.
Yep. And most of you out there who are over the age of 6 or 7 years old have been through one major one in our lifetime. And think about March of 2020. If we only knew what COVID was going to be and that it was going to be years and these different things that were going to change forever and so on and so forth, instead of taking it a day at a time and one victory at a time. I mean, basically, you remember all of the tents in New York City and all the other things that were set up and the quarantining and so on and so forth. If somebody told you up front in 2020 that we weren't going to be out of this for 3-4 years, what would you have done? I think all of us would be in the insane asylum. But somehow we dealt day to day, and we trusted people that we never knew, people who stepped up to do a whole lot of wonderful things. And in a lot of ways, we are so much closer as mankind for having gone through that experience than we were before that. Of course, you're not going to see that as front page news, but that really is the truth. Mankind has come together a whole lot better as a result of that. And if you look at the education system right now, and I talk about this a lot with grandchildren and so on and so forth, and where we are now as far as parenting and just people getting along with each other. Yes, we do have problems differences and so on and so forth. But mostly, if you look at our young kids, it's like they're not seeing colors or anything else. They're just getting along and having fun being kids with each other. And that's the way that this world really, really is. So, I mean, if you want to think about the unexpected, if I was to predict that when I was growing up in the 60s, I would have said, thank God, that sounds fantastic. But if I predicted that, it would have been tough, especially because back then we still had the same old media and all these other things that were going on. Plus, we had all the negative demonstrations and all the other things. I mean, anytime something happens now, you're going to hear about it. But it was really, really crazy as far as segregation and everything that was going on in this country, rampant, as opposed to we hear about it from time to time. And there are some people out there that still are like that. But the majority, the vast majority of us are just wonderful, wonderful people who see each other as brothers and sisters, regardless of who we are. And that's what's so cool. That's something that you need to realize and take away from this. That is reality.
Yeah. You mentioned COVID as a perfect example of an unexpected situation, but COVID is an extreme example. I mean, this is something that affected the planet.
Yep.
So I just want to talk a little bit about the fact that, unexpected situations aren't necessarily that big. They can be a lot more personal. They can be, what could be devastating to you as an individual, but not have much of an impact on your friends and neighbors. We've seen this over the past 15, 20 years over and over again, where somebody will get up, go to work, and find out that their job is gone. The business is closed. There was no warning. It's just, there's a note on the door, we're out of business. For an individual, that's devastating. For the community, for the friends, not so much. It does not necessarily affect everybody. However, your individual reaction to it is probably not that different than when COVID hit. Whether the unexpected event is on a massive scale or a very personal scale, it hits the person that it affects pretty much the same way. And you do need to take care. Now, it's a lot easier to find support when it's something very personal that doesn't affect, the community as a whole, the world as a whole, because not everybody is being affected. So there's more avenues for you to get support. When it's something like COVID, where do you go when everybody's affected? But again, the impact is still the same on the individual affected. So you need to build resilience. And this is something you have to start ahead of time. You can't build resilience once things happen. And the actress Carrie Fisher has a great line in her autobiography. The problem with being a survivor is that you're periodically called on to prove it over again. Things keep happening. And the easier you can deal with it, the more you build up the muscles and the strategies to cope, the easier it becomes. And it may seem like you're being hit over and over again with these absolutely horrific things, but each time you come back stronger. And that resilience is key. And we've done whole podcasts on how to build resilience. It's literally a mental muscle. You build it the same way you build your physical muscles, through exercise. So you need, if you really want to build resilience, to get out of your comfort zone more often. Try new things more often. Do things that you didn't think you would do. Face those fears. Because by doing all of that, you build your resilience. So when the unexpected happens, you're ready to take it on.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is reminding yourself of your past victories. I talk about a victory log in life, but if you sit down and you have a list of the different challenges that you've overcome, it'll strengthen your confidence. And you talked about the mental muscle. I mean, it's just so important to do that. And again, I tell people a victory log is just writing down every great thing that's ever happened in your life. So these are all the different things, school, relationships, and so on and so forth, everything that's happened that's good in your life. And the next time you're feeling down on yourself, just take a look at that list, because you're going to add to that all the time. But it's also so important on a daily basis to be grateful for what you have, what's going on, and so on and so forth. So a gratitude journal where you just take some time every day to just write down a couple of things and read it every single day is so important, because again, you talk about mental muscles. If you want your mental muscle to be positive, you have to expose it to positive things over and over and over again. And a practice of gratitude is really one of the best ways that you can possibly do that. Just being grateful for having to overcome things, for the relationships that you have, for the fact that you can look outside and instead of having 2 feet of snow and 5 degrees below zero like we did 3 months ago, it's going to be 80 degrees tomorrow. That kind of stuff. I mean, if you can flip that little switch in you and just have something positive to look at, build that into a habit. It's so important to do that, because all we have is that present moment, and you're going to have negative moments, but if you can make the next one positive, you got that going for you.
Yeah. And speaking of that positivity, when these unexpected situations emerge, we really do need to change the way we think of them. Commonly, most people, when they get hit with something unexpected, their thought is, okay, how do I get through this? How do I survive this? Well, in order to really deal with these, you need to switch that a little bit. Don't think so much about how you can survive it. Think about, how can I find an opportunity in it? You don't want to get through an unexpected situation in the same place you were before. You want to get through it better off. So look at the situation very carefully. Where are the opportunities? They may not be where you think, and they may not be obvious to you. But when you start planning, okay, this is what I need to do to get through this, take a look at each part of the plan and say, well, wait a minute. Yeah. If I make each part of this better, where are the opportunities? How can I end up better than I started because of this? And that simple shift of looking for the opportunity rather than just trying to get back to the status quo is very important. And this is not just for unexpected situations. This is something that people need to do in day-to-day life. I have seen example after example, especially over the past few weeks, of people seeing something that they're not happy with and trying to turn back the clock to go, well, I want it the way it was. Well, you know what? Nothing's ever the way it was. There's an old, I think it's a Buddhist saying that says you cannot step in the same river twice. And the meaning of this is the river is always moving, so it's not the same as the first time you stepped into it, and you're always changing, so you're not the same person that stepped into the river. Everything changes. We started this off talking about the technology and the experience of space travel. You know, once upon a time, that was impossible. You couldn't do it. Once upon a time, the idea of flying from New York to California in 6 hours was inconceivable. At one point, traveling from New York to California, you were lucky to make it in 6 months, and half of your traveling party would die on the journey. Things never go back to where they were. So you have to start looking for the opportunities to move forward and make things better, not just for yourself, but for the folks that depend on you, for the people around you, because those opportunities are everywhere. And if you can find them, if you can take advantage of those opportunities, then you're pushing yourself forward. You're making your life better. And that's the first step to making other people's lives better. Forget about what happened. What happened is past, and the past will never come again. What you have to look at is where you are in the present moment and how you can make where you currently are better for the future. And I'm saying it's a mindset shift. It's not an easy one. And I know loads of people who have tried to make this shift and they're still trying after years. They just get pulled back into that natural rhythm of theirs that, oh, well, I want to stay in my safety zone. I want to stay in the comfort zone. I don't want anything to change. And things always change. So you have to be able to embrace it. There was a line in the TV show Mad Men where the character of Don Draper says, "Change is neither good nor bad. It simply is." And that's something we all have to get used to. And now change is coming faster and faster. So 40 years ago, you may have had years to deal with an oncoming change, and now you might have to deal with it in days. We're seeing the uncertainty more and more. And I've heard people say for as long as I can remember that, yeah, I just want to wait until things get back to normal so that I can see what's going to happen. You never see what's going to happen. You don't have a crystal ball. You can't tell the future. And there is no normal. The only normal is change.
Absolutely.
So gear yourself up and get ready for it. All right, we are just about at the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for this week?
Well, we've talked about the history over the last 100 years or so, and so on and so forth, and all the things that are going on now. With more amazement comes more uncertainty, and a lot more uncertainty. And when we're going to be dealing with that, we talked about the key strategies: accepting and acknowledging it, controlling what you can, taking actionable steps, seeking support where necessary, reframing the situation if you possibly can. But mentally, the mental game, if you keep yourself the tipping point 51% positive instead of 51% negative, you're never going to realize nirvana, just like you're talking about, and people are always going to struggle. But it's so important to work towards just practicing mindfulness. I'm not talking about working. That's not what I'm talking about as far as mindfulness goes, because mindfulness isn't working. It's just taking a time out and pausing from all the things that are going on in your head. Responding instead of reacting, being flexible, but most of all, build that resilience in yourself. Number one, by enumerating the ways that you've had your successes in the past and overcome challenges and so on and so forth, realizing that you have a whole lot of people around you too that can probably help you out. So it is a mind game. I mean, life is a mind game, and we got 60,000 thoughts a day, a minute a day. And it's so important to just enumerate a few different things that you can do on a day-to-day basis to really keep yourself going forward. So good luck and enjoy. That's the most important thing. Enjoy.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway is the fact that the only thing that's certain is uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Uncertainty is always going to happen. We just have to be ready for it. You're not going to be able to plan for everything, but you have to be able to adapt quickly, and in today's world, more and more quickly. So accept that things are not going to be certain and be ready to take on a challenge. Look for that opportunity and make the most of it. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.